Hi, I'm Jody Hand, Mrs. Hand Painted, and in today's video I'll be showing you how to paint some allium flowers. These are really pretty and big globe sphere flowers that are really fun, and I'll break it down for you step by step so that you can paint them too. So have fun painting along with me, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future tutorials.
Today I'm going to be painting some alliums, and I'm going to start out by wetting my entire paper down so that I can just kind of like a fuzzy background. And I'm going to use a little spritz bottle, and this is Fabriano Artistico 5x7 block. And I like to use blocks when I'm doing like a full wash background because it's glued down on all the sides and the paper doesn't buckle as much. And if you leave it on the block to dry completely, it will make sure that your painting is nice and flat and it won't curl up as much as if you were just going to use a loose sheet of paper. So since I'm going to do a fuzzy background on this, this is just a nice little technique to learn. So I sprayed down my entire sheet of paper to get a nice even clean wash, and then I'm spreading that around with my flat wash brush. Just to get an even sheen. So if you can kind of look at it in the light and see that you have an even coverage of water across your paper and nice and damp. Now I just want to make a nice little fuzzy background, and I'm going to use some of the same colors that I'm going to be using in my painting, which are a green and a violet. I'm using sap green and Carbazole violet of my Daniel Smith watercolors, and I'm just going to kind of splatter some of those colors into the background, and I will spread it around just to give myself a nice hazy little background, just so it's not so stark white. And this is a technique that you can use in any of your paintings if you don't want a really white background, but you just want a nice hint of color in the background. Right, so just make sure that you don't have a lot of puddled spots of water and just spread that water evenly. And then I'm just getting some water on my brush with that pigment, and I am just splattering it around just to get some randomness in my color. I'll take some of that violet and I'll do the same thing that I did with the green. And it doesn't really matter um, where it goes. I just want it to be a hint of color in the background. Uh, you do want to avoid using too many colors or using colors that you're not going to have in your painting because it will the colors might not go together completely. So this is where planning what you're going to paint really comes in if you're going to be doing this technique for a background. So I'm just getting clean wash on my brush and I'm just spreading that around. And then if it's not enough, like here it's still pretty pale, I'm going to add some more in. I wanted some more violet. So I'm just going to splatter that in, and that gives me just that randomness that I want without it being too fussy. I guess that's the only way I can explain it. And I wanted even more violet in here, I think. So I'm actually just going to dab it in with my brush and spread it around a little bit. And I'm just going very, very pale. I don't want this to be super pigmented in the back. It's just a very like kind of pastel, hazy looking background. Um, and if you wanted to put some shapes of other flowers in at this point, you could do that too. But I'm just going to go ahead and dry this completely, and then I'll start painting over the top. So this is just my hazy background. All right, so that is completely dry, and I am going to go ahead and paint my flowers. I'm going to do 2 allium flowers on here, and I'm going to start out by doing the centers, and it's going to be a very, very pale violet color. And they're going to come out in kind of a spray pattern, and then there's little flowers on the ends of all of them. So I'm just going to do that in that very, very diluted violet. So just diluting that down quite a bit, and I'm using a round size 4 brush to do this part. All right, so with that very diluted violet and that round size 4, I'm going to start out in the center and go out from there with just very light pressure and just do kind of like almost like a firework, I guess. It's just making the little stamens that would come out. And this is just going to be showing up in the background behind my petals so that I have that hint of the stamen because they're alliums are like a sphere globe shaped, and they have a tight center where all of the little stamen come from, and then they pop out and they have tiny little flowers on the ends. So I want to do that center first of each of these. So I have one that's a little bit higher that'll be further in the background, and then one that's slightly bigger and in the foreground. So you can make that other one just a little bit bigger than the one that's behind it. And just going out from the center in kind of a spray starburst type of a pattern, but see, it's very, very faint violet. I've just diluted that down quite a bit, and I don't want it to be very dark. So for all my little flowers, I want to dry that first. Make sure that's really dry so that I don't bleed into that. And then I'm going to take my size 1 round brush to do all of my little flowers. So I'm using that Carbazole violet, and then I'm going to use a little bit. I had some Bordeaux on my palette. It's that rosy pink color right next to that violet. I'm going to use that to just kind of give myself a mixture of violet and red violet. So I'm going to start out on the edges, and I'm just going to make kind of a little very tiny star-shaped flowers or 5-petaled little flowers, but they can have some variation to them. And I just want to vary up the colors. So sometimes be lighter violet. So I'm not going to be reloading my brush every time, but you can kind of just vary that up, and then you can drop some pink in some of them as well. All right, so I'm just going around the outside edge, making little 5-petaled, almost star-shaped flowers. And just going to go around the outside edge and then work my way in. And they'll be more clumped together on the outside than they are in the center, just slightly, but um, you don't want them to be overlapping too much. Just kind of leave some white space in the background and just work your way around, and then we'll go in from the center. And just putting a few smaller ones in the middle there, and then I'll come back after that's a little more dry and add in a little bit more paint in the center to show that clumped together middle part. So I'm just going to do the same thing on the other allium flower and just go around the outside and work my way in. So these allium flowers are big and tall, and they have this big long stem that just comes straight down from the center, very thick, and then all of their leaves are down at the bottom. But since I'm kind of showing just that upper part of the flower, I'm not going to have the leaves. So I'm just going to have these big long stems coming down. So the one in front is going to be thicker than the one in the back, which is taller. So I'm just going to use my round size 4, some sap green, and just make a straight stem coming down from the middle there. And I do want to try to put a little bit of that green just in between. And I make my biggest mistake always is not letting that be completely dry. So I am getting a little bit of pleating, but I don't mind it. And then that one in the back will just be a little bit thinner, but just having a nice tall straight stem coming down. The last little part I want to do is just take some more of this red violet color and just kind of dab in a little bit of red violet into the center here. I'm just trying to fix that green a little bit there. I am just going to take some of that rose color, that Bordeaux mixed with the violet. I'm just making a red violet, and I'm just going to go around my little flowers just in the center, um, just that little small area right in the middle. I'm just going to go around and dab that red violet color in to show where all of those flower stamen or the stems of the little flower are coming from, because it's very clumped together in that middle part of the flower. And so just kind of want to just dab your brush just around those little flowers, just to show that that is more concentrated with all the little stems for the flowers there. And then I'm just going back over a few of those little flowers that I bled green into a little bit. And that is some watercolor alliums. Just a very simple little flower that you can add into some other pieces. I planted some in my garden. I can't really wait to see what they look like so I can have some real ones for inspiration. Thanks for painting along with me, and please make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any of my upcoming tutorials. I'll be adding lots more.